Montgomery, Alabama, May 10th, 2021. A young father calls 911 with a chilling claim. His newborn son is gone, kidnapped, he says from his car while he paid for gas. Police launch a massive search. Alerts go out. Volunteers comb the area. But as hours pass, the cracks in Caleb Wisnar Sr.'s story begin to show. Surveillance footage doesn't match his timeline. Then, in a dumpster, investigators find a tiny clue, his baby's pacifier. 2 days later, Wisnard stands before cameras, pleading for the public's help. But after the microphones are packed away, his story changes. He leads detectives to a shallow grave in the woods of Lowndes County. Inside, 5-week-old Caleb Michael Wisnard Jr. The autopsy reveals the truth. Severe blunt force trauma to the head, a broken leg, and other injuries. The man who first begged for help was the killer all along. Facing the evidence, Wisnard pleads guilty to capital murder. Now, at 32 years old, he will spend the rest of his life behind bars, with no chance of parole. Liberty County, Georgia, December 2nd, 2022. Hunters make a horrifying discovery deep in the woods. A human torso, discarded like trash. Days later, more remains. Legs, a head. The victim's identity is a mystery. No missing persons report, no one coming forward. It will take months and DNA testing to learn the truth. The remains belong to 40-year-old Mindy Mabane Cassidus. Smart, vibrant, and beautiful. She was married to a man who claimed to love her, but the reality was far darker. That man, Nicholas Cassidus, was no ordinary husband. A former Navy JAG officer, he spun an elaborate web of lies around Mindy, convincing her that a shadowy figure named Jim McIntyre controlled their lives, their money, even their constant moves from place to place. They relocated more than 50 times in just a few years, always, he claimed, in danger. But behind the paranoia was something more sinister. Prosecutors say Cassidus brutally murdered Mindy, then dismembered her body, scattering the pieces across a hunting club that spanned 3 Georgia counties. Her family never even knew she was missing. Nicholas told them she had died in a hospital, a story he could never explain. By the time police closed in, he had changed his name and remarried. In August 2024, Liberty County jury just took 1 hour to find him guilty on all counts: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing a death, and desecrating a body. Judge Paul Rose called it a brutal, horrific, gruesome murder, before sentencing him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 25 years. For Mindy's loved ones, justice has come, but the shadow of Nicholas Cassidus' lies and the mystery of the life he invented will haunt them forever. Perry County, Arkansas, June 22nd, 2022. Inside the small-town jail, it was supposed to be routine. Another inmate being booked in, but within minutes, the ordinary would turn into deadly chaos. The inmate was 37-year-old Roderick Lewis. He'd been picked up on drug charges. Deputy Jeremiah's story, just 21 years old, was assigned to process him. Lewis was escorted into a bathroom to change from his street clothes into a jail uniform. Jeremiah stood nearby, supervising. Standard procedure. Then, a gunshot. Jeremiah collapsed. The weapon? The very pistol Lewis had somehow kept with him, even while in custody of deputies. Other staff rushed in. A witness wrestled the gun from Lewis's hands, but it was too late. Jeremiah was rushed to the hospital in Conway and pronounced dead. The community was stunned. Jeremiah wasn't just a detention officer. He was a son, a friend, a young man with his whole life ahead of him. And Lewis? His past told a chilling story. At 17, he'd been convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life without parole, until a Supreme Court ruling for juvenile offenders set him free decades early. Released in 2020, he was back in trouble within months. And this time, when deputies came for him, he told officers he wasn't going back to prison. Now, after a Perry County jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, Lewis has been sentenced to life in prison, plus 15 years for a firearms enhancement. No parole, no second chance. For the family of Jeremiah's story, it's justice. But nothing will bring back the young officer who never made it home from his shift that night. Georgetown, South Carolina, July 21st, 2022. In the quiet hours after midnight, 2 lives were violently taken. 44-year-old John Ashley Altman and his girlfriend, 30-year-old Emily Riccitelli. Emily was a survivor. She had battled addiction, rebuilt her life, and was raising 2 children. John was a devoted father, but both were cut down in their own home, and the only witness was John's 9-year-old son. The boy had been playing in the bathroom, playing a game on his phone, when the gunshots rang out. Before they came, he heard his father shouting a name, "Ron, Ron, Ron." He recognized the voice of the man in the house. Someone he had known all his life, someone who he once called Uncle Ron. That man was 37-year-old Ronnie LeGrand Todd Jr., Emily's ex-boyfriend and John's longtime friend. Prosecutors revealed a disturbing trail of evidence: angry text messages, threats to blow their brains out, and Facebook messages declaring he was 100% going to kill Emily. On the night of the murders, surveillance footage captured him carrying a rifle and handgun to his truck, then leaving toward John's home. Moments later, Altman and Riccitelli were dead. The boy ran to a neighbor's house for help, telling her and the 911 dispatcher it was Todd who pulled the trigger. Investigators found bullets at the scene matching the kind Todd kept in his gun safe. He later admitted tossing the murder weapon along a rural road. It was discovered 2 years later, corroded but still a match. In court, Emily's sister described the heartache of never telling her how proud she was. John's daughter told Todd, "You've caused me to have trust issues in life. This is the start of my healing." The jury took less than an hour to convict. On August 11th, 2025, the judge sentenced Ronnie Todd Jr. to life in prison for both murders. No parole, no second chance. Justice for Emily and John delivered at last. Cheyenne, Wyoming. A warm July morning in 2015. Downtown is alive with the sounds of Frontier Days pancake breakfast. Thousands of people filling the streets. Just a block away, 2 men lie dead inside the coin shop. George Doc Manley, 76. Dwight Brockman, 67, both shot. No sign of a getaway car. No frantic suspect fleeing through the crowds. The man who calls 911 claims he saw it happen. He says a Hispanic man in a blue shirt was pilfering the safe, armed with a silver revolver. The gunman, he insists, pointed the weapon at him and ordered him to leave. Police believe him. He's just a bystander, a carpenter stopping by to drop off reading material. They don't search him, they don't search his car. The case goes cold. Nearly 10 years later, a detective reopens the file. He retraces the morning, reconstructing the timeline. Every clue points back to the 911 caller himself, Douglas Smith. Surveillance footage doesn't match his story. Witnesses place no one else at the scene, and tiny red specks on Smith's shirt, the kind only blood can leave, raise even more suspicion. Smith had claimed he was friends with the victims, but prosecutors say he killed them both. Whether it was robbery or something darker, they may never know for sure. In 2024, Smith is arrested in California. A decade after the murders, a Wyoming jury finds him guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. This August, the judge hands down the sentence. 2 consecutive life terms with no chance of parole. For the families of George Manley and Dwight Brockman, it's the end of a long wait for justice. And for Cheyenne, it's the chilling truth. The man who called for help was the killer all along. Arnhemville, Iowa. Population barely 360. A quiet town where nothing is supposed to happen. But on September 22nd, 2024, 17-year-old Michelle Luna Jackson didn't make it home. She had taken her mother's green electric scooter to the park, a place she went to think, listen to music, and escape. When she didn't return, her family searched frantically. Then they saw him, Nathaniel Beavers McGivney, riding her scooter, his clothes covered in blood. Jackson's sister's boyfriend held him at gunpoint until police arrived. The next day, the search ended in horror. Luna's body was found stuffed in a trash bin near a cornfield. Investigators say Beavers McGivney attacked her with a hunting knife, stabbing her so violently the blade snapped and lodged in her neck. Then he kept stabbing her with the broken handle. Blood was later found in his apartment, along with the discarded weapon. No motive, no explanation, just what the judge called pure evil. Beavers McGivney was convicted of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. The sentence, life in prison with no possibility of parole, plus 10 more years to serve. For Luna's family, the pain is forever. Her sister's words will hang in the courtroom air. You are evil, pure and simple, and I hope you get every bit of karma you deserve. El Cajon, California. A dark stretch of Willow Glen Drive, January 21st, 2003. Gunfire shatters the stillness before dawn. When deputies arrive, they find 2 bodies lying face down by the roadside. 30-year-old Patrick Green shot execution style in the back of the head. 17-year-old Brandon Vigil gunned down as he tried to protect his uncle. Both had been shot repeatedly, and the killer vanished into the darkness. For nearly 2 decades, the case went cold. Families grieved without answers. Justice felt impossibly far away. Then, an unexpected break. In 2022, a member of the Logan Heights street gang, facing his own prison sentence, makes an offer to investigators. He knows who pulled the trigger. Wearing a wire, the informant meets with an old friend, Michael James Romero. In chilling detail, Romero talks about his DNA possibly being on the gun and a plan to pin the murders on someone else, a man long dead. The recordings seal his fate. In April 2022, Romero is arrested at his home in National City. 3 years later, his trial begins. Family members fill the courtroom, holding on to 2 decades of pain, waiting for a verdict. They hear about Patrick's gentle nature and Brandon's loyalty to protect his uncle, a loyalty that cost him his life. On August 12, 2025, the jury finds Romero guilty of both murders. The judge hands down 2 life sentences without parole, plus 50 more years. For the families, it's a victory tempered by the truth. Justice came, but it came far too late. Bel Air, Maryland. Summer evening in August 2023. 37-year-old Rachel Morin, a vibrant mother of 5, set out for a jog along the popular Ma and Pa Trail. She never came home. By the next day, her body was found, brutalized and hidden inside a drainage culvert, just 150 feet from the path. The community was shaken and terrified. Detectives had little to go on until DNA from the crime scene matched a violent assault in California. And the man behind both crimes, 24-year-old Victor Martinez Hernandez, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. Martinez Hernandez had crossed the U.S. border 3 times in 2023, each time released after no criminal history appeared. But investigators would later uncover a disturbing past, accused of murder in El Salvador, connected to a California home invasion, and in possession of child sexual abuse material, some involving infants. After 10 months, he evaded capture. But in June 2024, a nationwide manhunt ended in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when his cell phone pinged at a sports bar. DNA from his arrest matched every single piece of evidence in Rachel's murder. Prosecutors revealed chilling details. Martinez Hernandez had searched for the Bel Air area on his phone, taken photos of Rachel, and carried out a rape and murder so quickly it could only have been planned. In court, Rachel's children and family spoke through tears. Her oldest daughter told the judge, "Before my mom was murdered, the world made sense. Now my heart is broken." The jury deliberated less than an hour before finding him guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree rape, sexual offense, and kidnapping. On August 11th, 2025, judge imposed the maximum: life in prison without parole for murder, another life sentence for rape, 40 more years for the remaining charges. For Rachel's family, it's justice, but the void she leaves will never be filled. Chester, Pennsylvania. Just before 11 a.m., a quiet Tuesday morning shatters. A man is driving north on Culhane Street, unaware that danger is closing in from behind. A Mazda 5 comes into view, speeding. It doesn't swerve, it doesn't slow down. It slams into him from behind with brutal force. The impact throws him forward. Metal screeches as the van veers off the road, crashing into a house on Price Street. But the horror isn't over. The driver gets out, holding a jagged piece of fence post, and in broad daylight, with witnesses watching, he begins to strike, over and over, yelling, "I'm going to kill you. I told you I was going to kill you." Neighbors call 911. By the time police arrive, the attacker is still at the scene, his vehicle too damaged to flee. The victim, 43-year-old Martin Vera Felix, is rushed to the hospital, but the injuries are too severe. He's pronounced dead. Investigators identify the driver as 46-year-old Jonathan Lee Autry. In court, the evidence is undeniable. Surveillance video, witness accounts, and the sheer brutality of the attack. On August 12, 2025, Autry is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A senseless killing, fueled by rage, and a community left asking, how could anyone carry out something so cold in the light of day? Lincoln, Nebraska, May 2021. 23-year-old Carly Schaaf was vibrant, loving, and full of life. But one night, she stepped into the house of someone she thought she knew and never would come out alive. Prosecutors say Joseph Barraza drugged and sexually assaulted Carly, just as he had done to other women before. An autopsy revealed she died from acute intoxication and suffocation. Afterward, her body was stabbed post-mortem, her hair bleached, and she was left unrecognizable. With the help of his girlfriend Rachel Pagler and his 16-year-old brother Daryl, Barraza hid Carly's remains at Pawnee Lake, dumping her in a secluded wooded area. For nearly a month, her family clung to hope, until the devastating discovery on June 10, 2021. Investigators would later uncover videos on Barraza's phone. 3 women, unconscious, assaulted. Carly was one of them. Her death was no accident. In court, Carly's loved ones described a family shattered beyond repair. The judge called Barraza a man with no remorse, no shame, and no humanity. On sentencing day, the punishment was final: life in prison without parole, plus 120 to 150 years. For Carly's family, the wounds will never heal. But with Barraza behind bars, he can never again take another woman's life. Memphis, Tennessee, a city about to face a nightmare it will never forget. It began in the early hours of September 7th, 2022, but the seeds of terror were planted years earlier. Ezekiel Kelly was no stranger to violence. At just 17, he was convicted of second-degree murder. Sentenced to 10 years, he served only 3 before walking free. By the time he stepped back into the streets, his record was already marked in blood, and on this day, he would mark it again. Just after 1 a.m., 24-year-old Dwayne Tustle was shot dead. Hours later, bullets claimed the life of 62-year-old Richard Clark, and then medical assistant Allison Parker. 3 others were wounded in seemingly random attacks. Kelly live-streamed part of the rampage on social media, smiling, taunting, firing his weapon. Memphis police issued a rare shelter-in-place order. College campuses locked down, public buses stopped, even a minor league baseball game came to a halt. The chaos didn't end until late that night, when Kelly crashed a stolen car and was taken into custody. This month, he stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to all charges. avoiding the death penalty, but sealing his fate with 3 life sentences without parole, plus 221 years. For Memphis, the case is closed, but the question remains, why was a convicted killer ever given the chance to strike again? Shreveport, Louisiana, June 25th, 2022. A routine drug deal at a gas station. At least that's how it started. Jeremy Ruru Wyatt, 31, pulled up to meet a buyer. But the man who stepped out of the car wasn't there to simply buy. It was 21-year-old Lloyd Tremaine Cooks. And in the span of seconds, the deal turned into an execution. Cooks left his car, pulled out not 1, but 2 guns, a pistol and a rifle, and unleashed over 24 shots into Wyatt's vehicle. Multiple witnesses testified. A passenger in Wyatt's car, responding officers, and forensic experts pieced together the brutal truth. Wyatt was struck multiple times by bullets from both weapons, his wounds fatal before help could arrive. Nearby surveillance cameras captured pieces of the attack, and Cooks himself admitted it, telling investigators he had arranged the marijuana purchase, approached Wyatt's car, and opened fire. This wasn't his first act of violence. Just 2 years earlier, he'd been convicted of aggravated battery in an attempted murder case and given probation. But this time, there would be no second chance. On August 11th, 2025, a Caddo Parish judge sentenced Cooks to life in prison at hard labor without the possibility of parole, plus an extra 10 years for violating his probation. 2 guns, 24 shots, and 1 decision that ensured Lloyd Cooks would die behind bars.